I can't tell you how many times I've heard, Andrew, my home or my business just switched to voice over IP phone service and now my XYZ doesn't work. Except they usually don't say XYZ, they usually name some really important system like their overhead paging or alarm panel. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you have learned this the hard way, actually. Sorry about that. So here's a list of analog devices and services to check before switching to VoIP. Hey folks, I'm Andrew with Viking Electronics, a manufacturer of high-quality security and communications products based in Hudson, Wisconsin, USA. On this channel, we bring you product info, tech updates, and industry trends, so be sure to like this video if you do and subscribe to the channel and click the little bell for every notification of new video releases. Okay, so voice over IP sales folks are getting better at asking these questions, but I wanted to put a list together for you to help you be prepared for your transition to voice over IP. Number one, alarm panels. These get left behind far too often. One of the challenges VoIP providers have is when they provide an FXS port for an alarm panel, the voltage is too low. Not always, but a lot of the times this causes the alarm panel to go into a false alarm state and creates a lot of problems. Number two, overhead paging. This is getting better. I've seen a lot of VoIP providers now start asking about paging, but not every VoIP installer knows a lot about paging, and that's not a knock on VoIP installers. Paging is very niche and can be exacting. Not every paging system is compatible with an FXS port. Sometimes you need an FXO port for your paging system. So what type of paging interface do you need? If you just get your traditional FXS port, you could be high and dry without a paging interface. Number three, door entry phones. Sometimes these are standalone. You get a point A to point B door entry phone, not even integrated with your phone system, doesn't matter. You could take the whole phone system out and go to cups and string and your door phone would still work. But if you're going to VoIP and you need your phone to integrate with your phone system, you need to know how that door phone is integrating and placing calls. Is it using an analog phone line or an analog extension? Is it tying directly into a trunk? Is there a controller involved that's in the middle of the whole thing? Also, do you need to reprogram that door phone once you get your new VoIP phone system in? Does it have to call a different extension or dial 9 before calling out to a cell phone or an external location? Number four. This one is actually hilarious to me because this is the one VoIP phone sales folks are like the best at asking about. And I get it, you know, fax machines are used far more often than I would have guessed, but I don't know why it's every time it's like, hey, we got the fax machine over, but we left the alarm panel and the elevator phones and now they don't work. So number four, check your fax machine. And number five, I just mentioned it, is your elevator phones. These are critical. These are emergency phones. These are supposed to be used hopefully never. So you might forget about them. Easy to do, but they're extremely important. So when you switch to VoIP, check that you're going to have enough analog connections to provide service to that phone. Another critical thing for elevator communications, if you're switching to VoIP, do you need to switch the elevator phones to VoIP? That might not be an option, because your traveling cable might not be equipped with a Cat 6 or Cat 5e cable. If it's not, my recommendation, keep your analog phones in the elevator and try to get FXS ports from your VoIP provider. You always have to wonder about voltages though. That's a big question when you get ATAs. Number six is another critical piece of communications infrastructure. If you've got multiple floors, you probably have an area of rescue or area of refuge system. Do they have Cat 6 cable or Cat 5e cable RAN, PoE ports available? And then since we're now riding over their network, if their network service goes down or power goes down to the building and it cuts power to the routers, do they have a battery backup for those routers that's going to provide enough time in accordance with your local codes for building an area rescue? Hey, real quick, if you're getting value from this video, be sure to thumbs up, smash that like button, and subscribe to the channel, click the bell. Let us know, okay, that this is something that you're appreciating and taking value from. We still got 4 more tips, and I've actually got a bonus tip number 11 for you, so stay tuned. Device number 7 is touch tone controlled or activated relay devices. A good example of this would be like cabins will sometimes have relay devices that answer incoming phone calls. So when you're driving up there in the winter, you can call into your cabin, trigger this device, and it turns the heat on. So when you get there, it's not as cold as it is outside inside your cabin. This could also be a device that activates to turn off a system that's gone into alarm mode. That brings us to device or system number 8, which is mass notification. Mass notification sometimes accesses a PBX to call through to paging. Sometimes it's triggered by a phone call. Maybe you dial into a unit like Viking's DNA 510, which answers a call. You give it a touch tone command, and then that from there triggers emergency tones or non-emergency tones over a paging system. A couple things here. Does the new voice over IP phone system pass touch tones? Not all voice over IP phone services pass touch tones. That could be a huge problem if you're relying on touch tones to activate or route your calls. And the second thing is, if it does tie into your phones, does it need an FXS port or an FXO? And can your VoIP provider get you an FXO if that's what it takes? So question of the day, just to test your knowledge on FXS and FXO ports. If a mass notification system connects to a CO line port on your analog PBX, what type of VoIP conversion port do you need from your phone provider? FXO or FXS? Put the answers down in the comment section below, and we'll be watching to see who gets it right and who needs to study more. Device or system number 9 is loud ringing bells and digital ringers. Now these are devices that receive an incoming phone call. They don't answer the call, but they detect it and broadcast loud ring. I'm sure you've heard this in factories, warehouses, back offices, or somebody who sleeps a lot. A lot of times voice over IP services, when they put an analog converter, an ATA with an FXS port into your system to trigger these ringers, the ring voltage isn't up to bell standards, which in some cases that's what the ringer is looking for, is that 90 volts ring. If you're not getting enough voltage, that unit may detect the incoming phone call, but it's not going to ring. It's not going to know what it's supposed to do with this low voltage signal coming in. Tip number 10, and then we got a bonus here. Tip number 10 is for ring activated relays and sensors. This is a little different than what I was talking about before with the touch tone controlled relays. This is just detecting an incoming phone call, detecting that ring voltage, and activating a relay or activating a light. For example, there's a on the phone light. If the phone line is in use, this light lights up indicating, hey, don't tap this person on the back or try to tell them your funny joke you heard over the weekend because they're on the phone. All right, bonus tip number 11. I touched on this briefly talking about the emergency communications for the elevator, for the area rescue systems, for really any emergency communication. But when you're going to voice over IP, you need to consider battery backup for your network infrastructure. Routers, modems, PoE switches, anything that deals with these devices potentially needs to be backed up for typically 4 hours or more. Worst case scenario, if all the power is gone, the generator doesn't work, you need a battery backup or a UPS that's in place that's going to be sufficient for all of your network equipment to be running at maximum capacity for a set duration of time. Again, typically that duration is 4 hours. It could be longer, or it could be shorter based on what area you're in. Check with your local inspector to get some exact numbers for your area. Got any tips of your own to add? Let us know in the comment section down below. Check out these additional tutorial videos from Viking Electronics for continued learning and education. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.